Open your eyes. Look at your children walking. Look at your children. Where are they headed today? What pathway are they on? Are they on a broad way or are they on a narrow way? They're heading headstrong toward eternity. Saints, can I tell you today, as I bring this message to a close, we got to exercise careful prayer. Careful fasting. Careful tears. Careful concern. Sisera was nothing but a gangster. He was a bloody, cold killer. He was bold. He walked around with a group of ruthless men, and they did whatever they pleased. It was a common sight to see Sisera pull up in his mighty chariot with all of his rough crowd around him. It doesn't matter how rough he was, or how rough you are, or how rough some of your children may be, or some of your loved ones. It doesn't matter how tough they are. I'm telling you today that I have seen God move the unmovable.
Yes.
I was sitting in the Philippines, and we were sitting there the first night of convention. 2 men came from Brother Morel's church. And one of them was sitting across from me. He's about 350 pounds. He's a big man. And he said he's lost about 70 or 80 pounds. He was talking, and he said, when I used to be the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, I said, do what? I said, run that by me one more time, brother. He said, yes, sir. He said, I was the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, the most active Ku Klux Klan group in the United States of America. We had the biggest group. And he said we were very active. He said it was nothing for us to have rallies and have hundreds of Klan members. I said, well, I didn't even realize that they were even that active anymore. I said, well, tell me this. I want to hear your testimony. And that man sat there and he began to tell me his testimony. Because I said, brother, I want to know one thing. What in the world are you doing here in this foreign country with these dark-skinned people? Because I said, y'all hated foreigners, blacks, Jews. He said, you better believe it. He said, the first time I ever went to an apostolic church, he said, I was the Grand Dragon then. He said, I had a pistol on me hidden in the church house. He said, my vehicle was loaded down with assault rifles, weapons. He said, and all of a sudden the bus pulled up, and he said about 40 black youngins got off. And he said, you would not believe it, but they sat on the same pew I was on. He said, I told my wife, we got to get out of here. I can't have this. She said, no, let's stay and let's listen to the service. He said, and we did. And he said, but I told her then, I'll never be back to this church again. But he said, Brother Drew, God got a hold of my heart. He said, a young boy from the church had knocked on my door. I was out in the yard working on something. My wife let him in, and he said, I walked in the house, and he said, he opened up a little pamphlet called Into His Marvelous Light. That's the Bible study we send into the prisons. Every time we get a letter from a prisoner, we send that Bible study to them. He said that young boy opened up that pamphlet Into His Marvelous Light, and he stood there, and he read that pamphlet to me. And he said, when that boy walked out of that house, he said, I looked at my wife and said, that boy's got something we don't have. He said, I felt the Holy Ghost in my house for the first time in my whole life. He said, and that Spirit kept drawing me, kept drawing me, kept drawing me. He said, I have been on every national talk show that there is on television. He said, I've been on the Geraldo show, the Sally Jesse Raphael show. He said, Maury Povich. He said, I've been on Jerry Springer. He said, in my Klan regalia. I said, well, them folks ought to call you back now since you're reformed and you're apostolic.
Oh, they don't like that. No,
Think about it. I said, brother, what happened? He said, I was the roughest, toughest, baddest person that you could ever think about.